Great. All right, Harsha, let's go ahead and get started. I think we have a lot to cover today, so it'd be
Sure.
good to get going here. So I'm gonna share my screen here. I'm guessing you can see it.
Sure.
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for joining today. I want to talk to you about qualitative research versus quantitative research and really dive into obviously some of the basics on what's the difference between the two, what are some of the different methods, but then jump into some interesting question types for each one and some different methods. So we'll jump into that. But first, I want to introduce myself. I'm the president of research and insights here at QuestionPro. So I represent the research license, all of the research functionality that you see inside of QuestionPro, along with the communities platform, the audience, which is our online sampling platform and panels and so forth, and then also services. So, doing actual end-to-end research for clients if they need that as well. And then I'm guessing most of you know Harshad, but Harshad, if you want to introduce
Sure.
yourself, I'll give you the floor.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. So, most of you guys know me already, but I'm Arshad. I run the higher education business for QuestionPro. So, been dealing with all the universities across the globe, for a couple of years. So most of the partners or, users know me already. So that's great. And yeah, we're really excited to do this webinar today.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Harsha. So today, what are we going to be talking about? Well, as I mentioned, I want to talk to you about qualitative research versus quantitative research. I understand for some of you, this is kind of a no-brainer. You know this stuff. For others, it'll be a good refresher and just sort of setting the table for some other things that we're going to be discussing today. We'll talk about Heatmap and Hotspot testing, go into card sorting, talk about video discussions, which is a newer feature that we've released here at QuestionPro. Talk about LiveCast, which is a new beta feature. It's a video mobile diary type question type with some interesting features for analytics as well. And then we'll be doing a Q&A. I think for this, we'll do a Q&A after each one of these different sections. So we'll kind of break it up a little bit so we can talk about the things that are relevant and that we just talked about. All right, well, let's dive right in. So wanted to start with an interesting sort of comic here. And I think this explains pretty clearly what the difference is between quantitative and qualitative methods. So quantitative methods, you see on the left there, free ice cream, only 1 in 30 take the free ice cream. Interesting. But then more of the qualitative method is more asking about how do you feel when you saw the free ice cream? Are you excited, a little scared, and why was that? So more getting at the root of why and sort of a free form, open question format, whereas the quantitative, as we'll obviously get into, is more of closed-ended, more structured. So I thought this illustrated it pretty well and kind of setting the table for what we'll talk about today. But if we want to get down into it, the quantitative is, and qualitative, you can see on the left and right-hand columns here. Quantitative in terms of a data type is structured data. It's going to be closed-ended answers collected inside of surveys or some other methods as well. Then we also have unstructured, on the qualitative side, more unstructured data, open-end text, free-form responses, as we saw in the previous free ice cream example. We're asking why, getting at the root of it in that manner. Analysis, typically quantitative is going to be statistical analysis on the different questions and so forth. We'll get into sampling a little bit in terms of probability and non-probability sampling. So we'll touch on that as well. But for the most part, you're going to be doing different stats analysis with quantitative. And then qualitative is largely a summary of overall responses. Although we're trying, I would say, on some qualitative methods is to really make those more of a kind of get quantitative out of qualitative data a little bit in terms of structuring some of those responses and floating those insights up so you can understand easily what's going on and better analyze some of the data coming back from qualitative. And then research conclusions. So with quantitative, you get more objective conclusions. It's unbiased results and statements. Whereas qualitative, because you don't have the mass numbers of people that you're doing research with, it's more subjective, more influenced by opinions. And I would say that's really the point of qualitative research. So It's not good or bad, it's just what qualitative research is more used for. And then we have survey, for methods, we have survey and research instruments. Usually it's computational techniques that you can really quantify and aggregate all of the data through those different surveys and other techniques. Qualitative is really around focus groups, discussions, and observations, more kind of viewing and asking those more in-depth, unstructured questions. In terms of quantitative, we'll spend a little bit of time on that and talk about some of the best practices. Now, for each of the different methods, there's best practices for those. We won't get into really in depth on each of these because honestly, each one of these could be its own webinar. But just to set the framework, the method of survey research is most fundamental in the tool for all of quantitative research. I think really centers around survey research and many of the different closed-ended question types that we offer inside of QuestionPro. We'll touch on a few of the more interesting ones that I guess you could argue maybe even bridge the gap a little bit between quantitative and qualitative, although I would say they're more more quantitative because you need the numbers in order to get, in order to aggregate the responses, like in Heatmap, Hotspot, and so forth. So we'll talk about some of those. So the sample size varies. Obviously, if you're doing probability sampling, there's certain percentages certain numbers that you want to get to for significance testing and so forth, but kind of varies, but typically it's larger numbers. Correlational research, so if you want to see if two things are correlated together and how much, that is really around that. And you need obviously two different groups to be able to do that and to test out the correlation between two different things. There's casual comparative research. So this is used by researchers to conclude the cause and effect equation of two or more variables. Usually it's 20 to 60 sample size there. And then experimental research, which is based on theories. And again, that varies. So I think really for this one, for this webinar, probably touching more on survey research and correlational research, with more of an emphasis on the survey research component. When we talk about quantitative, I think we need to talk about sampling and how that goes. Really, there's probability sampling and also non-probability sampling. Really, the difference is that with probability sampling, you can use it for different testing methods. We all know odds and probabilities that represent the population, so you can use that as well. And you can use it to project your findings, right, against the larger population because it's an even subset of the population that you're sampling. Where, non-probability samples may or may not represent the population. We'll touch on that, but those are some of the differences. So some of the different types of probability sampling is simple random sampling, implemented where the target population is considerably large. So you're randomly selecting respondents to participate in a survey. You're not targeting it in any way. Stratified random sampling, it's divided into groups and members of the sample are chosen randomly. And then cluster sampling and systematic sampling as well. All different probability sampling methods, but I think sort of the most important thing here is that when you do probability sampling, you're able to use random selection, and that then by default, you're able to use the odds or probability to project to the larger population. So you don't have to necessarily do a census where you're getting everybody, but you're able to project it based on a limited number of responses to your overall group. All right, so non-probability sampling is really out of convenience, I think. It doesn't mean that it's not necessarily, it doesn't necessarily mean that you can't put odds or probability towards it, but in general, it's gonna be samples where that may or may not represent the population at large if you wanna project it, but it definitely can represent your target market or what you're trying to go after. So convenience sampling, the elements of the sample are chosen only due to one prime reason. And that's really hey, it's convenient because they're close to me or I have easy access to the particular sample. And then there's consecutive sample quota sampling, which obviously a lot of surveys do, where you just need this quota maybe for this target and this quota for another target. And I know that based on those, I'm meeting the needs of my particular research study. So those are, some of the more popular non-probability sampling methods, of course, with snowball and judgmental. But I think, convenience, quota are two of the more popular ones that I see. Just to have a good framework of sampling and a good background, these are some of the things there. All right, now switching gears towards qualitative research. I know some of, hardcore quant folks are like, we don't need qualitative research. We can't do anything with it. And, we want to go with the tried and true methods that we can use to do odds and probability and get our significance testing and so forth. But I wouldn't, completely call off qualitative research. There's definitely a good need for it, as, the market suggests. And really humanizing the numbers, I think, is a good way to put it. You're getting more of the context around things, so you're able to paint the story. Qualitative research helps tell the story around the specific project, maybe getting into more of the why, sort of the fundamental approach that you want to take with quantitative research. So many times people are doing quantitative research to then yield out or doing qualitative research to then yield out the quantitative aspects to better apply those probabilities or odds to it. You can empower stakeholders to make quicker business decisions. I think you can sometimes do qualitative research more quickly, and then also passionate, excited to strategize the next steps, helps build excitement around insights collected. You're getting more of at the root of the feelings or why, I think, is some of the biggest things. There's many different types of qualitative research, from ethnographies, where you're really getting in and going into the place where someone lives or works and really getting the more context or culture there around observations and interviews. Narrative, which, individual sequence, you're talking to one person at a time and you're really getting their stories and documents. Not to say that you can't have specific questions set up that you want to ask each person, even obviously in a focus group, you'd want to do that as well. But the answers are much more open-ended and sort of free-form than you would get in a closed-ended quant survey. And then obviously you have, grounded theory, develop a theory from grounded in field data, interviews, then open and coding as well. And then you have case study, which obviously, you're developing for organization, entity, individual. And then this really goes around interviews, documents, reports, and observations. I would say for this webinar, what we're going to be talking more about is really around the narrative and the focus groups around some of the different question types that we'll introduce and some of the different features that we'll be talking about. There is obviously a big push with mobile qualitative research, as everybody is getting more mobile. Obviously, I mean, for probably over a decade now, things have been shifting more towards mobile. We're even seeing from a survey level, more surveys being done on mobile than on a traditional laptop or desktop, kind of bridging the gap there. But mobile is definitely a good thing to talk about when it comes to quantitative and qualitative research. Really, with qualitative research in mobile, you can capture respondents in the moment, which is nice. So you can get some of that qualitative feedback in the moment. And you can use this through geolocation triggered. You can also do this more in a quantitative way, where you can trigger based on location, and then a survey goes out to them. That survey might invite them to then do qualitative research. So that's something that you can do as well. And then you can use push notifications, real-time responses. So you can do all these things to capture in the moment with respondents. An interesting study that we did during the last presidential election, we used geolocation triggered events at polling locations in Florida, and essentially was geolocation exit polling to then see, obviously there's traditional exit polling, but this was really around, we put a geo trigger location at each of the polling sites, and then they were able to, when people that were pre-recruited for this particular study, when they went to vote, they would then get a push notification around filling out who they voted for and so forth. So you can do that both, qualitative and quantitatively, but that's just an example there. Obviously, discussions, topics, idea board, more qualitative open-ended methods that makes it easy for collecting different feedback and really listening. And especially when you're talking about idea boards and topics, discussion boards, it's more around listening and hearing from the respondents themselves and some of the different things that they want to project at a certain time. And then, of course, communities, I think, is a big qualitative, and it also obviously can be used for quantitative research as well when you are pushing out surveys to a larger community. But the community really allows for to have a group of your customers inside of the community that, or customers or specific members that all match like a similar profile that you can then use to survey and do research with over time. But this is obviously, there's a mobile app that they can download with the community's platform as well. So when we talk about analytics for qualitative, as I mentioned, it can be more than just reviewing a bunch of text open ends and things like that. Although downloadable text in all formats is available, what we're getting to, and I would say trying because we're going to always be continuing to get better at this, is really more around automated text categorization, sentiment analysis around these different things. We have these things in the platform, but I think you can always continue to improve and get smarter and use natural language processing and so forth, which we'll get a little bit more into around what are some of those specific types of analysis. And then you have your trusty, reliable word cloud. Honestly, I think that is something that can be used for really teasing out what were the most frequently words that were said in sort of an open-ended, more qualitative format. And then let's see here. Looks like we already covered this stuff. All right, so that's really the difference around quantitative versus qualitative. Hopefully you got some of the good aspect there around what we're going to kind of laying the groundwork around those, or even a good refresher around some of those different sampling methods that I don't think we all use or realize that we're using all the time, and also kind of the baseline for the quantitative and qualitative that we're talking about here. Harshad, are there any questions so far that we should address now, or?
Yeah, so I don't see any questions so far, but
okay.
Guys, just in case if you have any questions, feel free to post those questions in your, in the Zoom chat, or you can even post it on the Q&A module on Zoom, and we can address them. Okay, I think so. We have one question.
Okay.
1 second, let me see. All right, so the question is, due to the current situation of COVID, I decided to move an in-person interview to internet open-ended questions. Mm-hmm. How do you think the transit will affect the efficiency of response received during the thematic analysis?
Yeah, I would say it would depend on a few things. One is if these are people that or if you're just sending a survey out to an online sample, or I think it would affect the response. If you're recruiting these people and you're vetting them and you're just having them fill out a survey, I think you'll probably get good responses, but probably not as in depth as you would in person. What you could do is, rather than shift to closed-ended survey questions, you can use maybe an online focus group discussion module that we have, and I'll be showing it to you coming up. But that way you can still get the in-depthness of conversation that you're probably having in person, as opposed to the closed-ended survey, or not closed-ended, but those questions as well, where you're probably getting a little bit limited responses than you would be if you're in person. So hopefully that answers your question or helped you out.
Yep. All right. So no more questions so far. I think so we can move ahead. Guys, just in case if you have any questions, just keep them flowing in the chat or the Q&A module, and we'll get them answered.
All right, let's keep it rolling here. So let's talk about heat map and hotspot testing, and really how you can drive optimal research insights through those different methods. I'll be aware of time here too. So heat map analysis. What is heat map analysis? Well, it's a graphical representation of what an image that individuals value represented in colors. So you see here, like the image of the United States displayed on the left, And then on the right, it's the heat map of that image. So it could be from, hey, where do you live, to where do you think the coronavirus is, most susceptible. It could be any questions. Obviously, that's not what this map says here, but you could have people highlight, and then you could have them highlight where they think that is, and through dragging and dropping or in clicks. And then it's represented visually as a heat map here. So you can get a real graphical or real image representation of that rather. So you can really see what members like, what they don't like, what gets their attention, or certain things of that nature. You can use heat maps for research when you're gathering feedback on a web design, like what area draws your attention most? What areas do you like? You can use it for concept testing, so different products or designs, what users like, what they don't like, etc. And then to further break down the why. Well, I think sometimes people might have a hard time expressing why, but when you show them an image and they can select part of it that they either like or don't like, you can really get some good quantitative answers out of that as well. And then some of the advantages of heat map, I think it saves time and resources converting more qualitative research into quantitative. Certainly you could do this, in person and have people, point to an image, or, do it through like an IDI type session. But doing this through this heat map question type definitely saves time, gets you deeper insights as well, because you're able to see that, the heat map of where people were selecting or what they liked best about the image. And then you can use that to get those deeper insights that you need around heat maps. So this is obviously a question type that we offer. There's really 3 types of heat map analysis that you can do, where there's attention maps, which reveal which parts of an image get the most attention. So you can see in this example, it looks like there's, stock trading or something. You can see sort of what in this image is getting the most attention, and then you can use that to make, obviously, product enhancements or change things as necessary as well. And then scroll maps can be used to highlight. So highlight parts of the image where you're visiting most. Much of the area is visible on the page without scrolling. How far people scroll before the content is irrelevant. So these are types of heat map. This is type of obviously heat map that you can do on a website. The one that I think is probably, the one that's probably most relevant is this one, I think, where it's either through a click on an image or through highlighting, but you can get and see where those clicks are. So you can see on the right-hand side, you could ask a question like, what draws your attention most? And you can see here, there's probably this call to action button along with some different menu options here. So these click maps are really relevant in terms of seeing where the image gets the most clicks, and then you can easily quantify that as well. So that is a quick overview of heat map. I would say if you have different images or concept tests that, or images or different products or concepts that you want to test out through images and see what's drawing the most attention to users, that is a good way to go about it. I would say heat maps, sibling is really Hotspot. And Hotspot testing is a little bit different in that it's really your predefining areas or selections within an image that you want users to either like or dislike, and then even they can tell you why that they like or dislike this. So maybe you want direct feedback on images, and like, hey, for this part of the image, we want to know, do you like it, do you not like it? And this could be even done after you've done some heat map testing in terms of what area is drawing the most attention. Or it could be, hey, what do you think about this title or this image on the packaging or website, whatever it might be. But it involves those predefined areas, which I think are the key point here for this hotspot image testing. When do you use hotspot testing for research? It can be used in concept testing for products, usability testing, and feedback surveys. So all of these different types are just I think a few of the use cases, honestly, but really it's around having an image, having some pre-selected areas, and whether people like or dislike that particular area. And then some of the advantages are you get that quick feedback, you get the quick insights around a particular image, around what people like or don't like, and then you can easily change it accordingly. Straightforward and exact. It'll tell you, sort of through this heat map kind of hotspot type analytics, to where it'll tell you whether it's red or green. And obviously the more green it is, the more people liked it, the more red, fewer people liked it. So you get those straightforward and more exact insights. And then, I think obviously sometimes in survey research, we hit respondents with a battery of matrix questions, with closed-ended questions. And this hotspot is a good interactive question type that's actually fun for respondents. It gets them out of the norm of a lot of the things that they do on surveys. So it's definitely a fun exercise for them as well.
All right. I think so we have a few questions. I mean, a couple of them on Heatmap and Hotspot. Sure. I'll just take the first question. So we have Martin asking us a question. Can we explain some recent projects which are made on QuestionPro for user research? So typically using Heatmap or Hotspot, or generally in terms of oral research.
Yeah, so we work with a lot of, some examples that come to mind are in like the CPG space and also in the gaming space. So CPG might be, hey, I have this package and I want to see if it resonates well, or what parts of it resonate well with clients. So they would put an image up. I'm making this up, but let's say it's paper towels, right? Or napkins, and they want to see which part of the packaging is most relevant or most people like. That's one. Or then maybe they made some changes and they want to see how relevant those changes are. In the gaming space, it could be they show an image of the game and they want to see what parts of that game are drawing the most attention. And then obviously from there, they can extrapolate and make changes or enhance different areas of that screen. So those are two of the most recent, I think, that I can think of around Heatmap and Hotspot, and specific examples of how companies are using that.
Great. So we have one question from Paul, and this is more on qualitative and quantitative research. So the question is, should qualitative research be nearly always followed by quantitative research to confirm?
It depends. I think it depends on a couple different things, but typically the pattern that I see is people do qualitative research to figure out sort of the why behind it, get more of those open-ended insights and more brainstorming feedback. Then you can structure that and then do the quantitative research. Although that's not always necessary, you can certainly do quantitative research without doing qualitative research. You can do qualitative research without doing quantitative, but if you want to use the two, typically if you have like an idea or concept, you would do qualitative research in the form of IDIs or focus groups, and then based on those results, put them together into more of a quantitative study, send that out after you have some of those ideas. It could be around different products, different concepts, naming. It could be around all of those different things, but that's typically the flow that I learned and that I see in the marketplace.
Awesome. So we have one question from Michelle, and this is about heat maps. What special equipment do we need in order to be able to capture what part of an image someone is paying the most attention to? So
yeah, so the way that we do heat maps is you don't need any special equipment. Essentially, with the mouse or if they're using a mobile on the screen, they can highlight the area and then that gets saved. And then we use that to derive the actual, analysis for the heat map. So there's no special equipment. I know that there's some companies that offer like eye tracking and things like that. That's not something that we do. One, because, we don't have that hardware capability being a software company, but the way that we do it is by using the mouse to either point and click or drag a highlighted selection on the image that you have in the survey.
Awesome. So we have one question from Mayank, and the question is hotspot or image heat maps useful for research and planning? If yes, could we give an example?
I think it is useful for research and planning in terms of, but it's more around getting feedback around a particular, image or concept and what parts of that image are drawing people's attention. So if you need it for planning, I'm not 100% sure on that use case. There probably are, but I would say it'd be used more for doing research on either package design or different images, websites on what's drawing people's attention, what people like and don't like in the case of Heatmap or Hotspot based on those pre-selected areas that you have. So kind of general there, but I think more on the research side as opposed to planning, unless you're planning, to change the packaging or, things of that nature, and you want to see where people, what things you should change, although that could bleed into more of the research aspect of it.
Awesome. So I think so we have one more from Jenny, and the question is, what are the qualitative data analysis that we can do with QuestionPro?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
What are the different types of qualitative data analysis that we can do with QuestionPro?
Qualitative data analysis. So we offer, we'll get into this actually, so maybe this is a good precursor, but we can do online focus groups, this feature we call LiveCast, which is essentially a respondent capturing a video of themselves doing, whatever task that you want them to do, and then applying sentiment and categorization to that. There's also there's a chat-based room that you can use, which actually works pretty well, especially if people are on mobile or on the go and you want them to join a chat-based online focus group. That can be done. We also have idea boards. We have this topics boards, which is like an online forum, bulletin board type research study. So those are all of the different things that we can do. And then through those, there's analysis for each one of those. Typically it's categorization and sentiment analysis around those, because those are, I think, two of the most common that I see and know about in the qualitative space. But hopefully that answers your question.
Awesome. So we have one last question on qualitative research. In qualitative research, what would be the ideal response rate for one to comfortably make a decision or a conclusion?
Yeah, it's more subjective. So I don't think you rely as much on response rate as you do as you do on just getting people to participate in your study, because you're not going to be projecting these. You're just strictly getting opinions. Obviously, you want to interview more than one or two people, but it's more subjective than objective that you get with quantitative research. But typically there's obviously certain sizes for a focus group. Sort of 10 to 12 people is the magic number. I think anything more than that in a group just becomes hard to manage, a little bit unruly to get everyone's opinion mixed in there. But you're not so focused on sample sizes in qualitative research. You would leave that for more quantitative research.
Great, perfect. All right, let's proceed. I think so we can have some questions still rolling in. Let's go ahead.
Yeah, we may not get to all of them too, but if we don't, I can always follow up and answer these directly. So we'll be talking about card sorting next, and then getting into video discussions and LiveCast. So I think we're doing well on time here. So let's keep it rolling. So card sorting. What is card sorting? It's an interactive question type that respondents can use to sort answer options into different buckets to categorize those responses. So then the answers rank from least to most crucial answer options. The questions are highly engaging, require more in-depth level of interaction because users are actually clicking on a particular answer option and then dragging it to a category that you either have predefined or undefined if you want to have the users categorize that. Typically, you have those categorizations that you do ahead of time, and then you want people to drag the answer options there. So we'll get into some of the methods of why and where this works well, but those are some of the things. Again, this is a fun question type for your respondents as well. So let's go over a particular use case. So let's say you're a brand that wants to derive consumer insights from an audience of features they want to categorize into buckets of predetermined segments, like we've mentioned before, and they want information in the buckets to be ranked from most to least important to get a macro and micro level insights in the person's decision making. This can be on a particular product, like what do you think should be included in the product, service tweaks based on the decision of making of the audience, and can even price depending on those important vectors. So really getting into these are the different answer options. How do I want to categorize these? If you think about websites and what should go under each menu item, that's a typical use case for this. Or let's say you're a restaurant and you're selecting a menu and you want people to categorize those different menu options. It could be anything where you know everything that you want, but you don't know how to categorize it. That's really, kind of thinking about card sorting at its core and really breaking it down. That's what you can really use it for. So there's closed and open card sorting. So card sorting allows obviously to group those into two or more. The closed-ended really has those predefined categories that you set for respondents. This is the one that is generally used, whereas open card sorting is users can define their own buckets or their own categories. And this is more generally used when the audience know the brand, but aren't necessarily, brand promoters. They might be more loose and you want to just see, hey, what categories do they think it should fit into? And then of course, there's different analysis for both closed and open-ended card sorting. This is an example of a mobile optimized card sorting, but you can just see this as a card sorting example as well. How do these activities make you feel? And then there's comfortable, like not so good, and then excited, which ones you get excited about. So you can see based on these emoji representations of weightlifting, biking, soccer, people are maybe not so excited, but they're really excited about the microphone. So maybe singing or doing a webinar, right? Or podcast, whatever it might be. Those are things that they really get excited about as well. And then, so then you can see based on those different percentages here, how those make you feel. So you can get those percentages and you can see based on the color codes here that the uncomfortable or excited, you can see what percentage said the most. And then based on this, you would know like, okay, these are the different categorizations. Obviously this is more sort of, I wouldn't call it necessarily a tongue-in-cheek example, but for example purposes, but you can see how those different categories would play out. And then you can see how you can make some of those insights based on how people categorize those things. So one of the things that we do is we offer an industry first 4 types of viewing data in card sorting and closed card sorting analysis. So we do the bar chart, clustered column chart, stacked bar, and stacked column chart. So you can look at the data in the way that it works best for you, and also just get different angles of the data and the representations to view those in categorizations that make sense. So that's something that is easily done in card sorting in our platform. You would just select those different charts and it would show up accordingly as well. Here's an example, like I mentioned, of the analysis closed card sorting. We looked at this a little bit on that mobile optimized example, but you can see here that in this case, it was categorize and rank the following features in a suitable category that you would consider making a smartphone purchase decision. So if it was these are the different categories here. So we have metal body, RAM, HD display, camera quality, and so forth. And then it was categorized into must-haves, good-to-haves, and not important. So you can see here that the 3 most important things or must-haves were the metal body, the RAM, HD display, and then you would also be able to see the face unlock is not important, SD, dual SIM. This is sort of a fictitious example. So, but you can see how have the different categories, and then the feature set based on the must-have, good to have, or not important as a particular categorization. In open card sorting analysis, we have a tubular heat map that, again, no one else in the industry offers. This heat map shows a percentage breakdown of categorization for each answer option. So again, open card sorting is that where it's more of a, where the respondents are selecting the categories that they're placing each one into. So rather than having it more of the closed-ended where you are selecting those different categories. So open card sorting analysis has these, looks more like this, to where you can see some of the different categories here, like not needed, can't consider, must have, good to have, very important. And then based on that same example, having the metal body, the RAM, HD display. So some of those different attributes that you have in there as well. And this is, again, is putting those into those different categories. So you can see that based on, must have is 100% for dual SIM and HD cards. So you would know that this greater variant here is the darker gradient here is, more of a higher, I wouldn't say probability, but you would know that this is more of a relationship between the must have and dual SIM, as opposed to some of these that have, the lower shaded blue color. So that's a quick overview of card sort analysis. I would definitely recommend using it if the opportunity presents itself. Any questions, Harshad, before we get into video discussions and LiveCast, where I'm sure we'll have a lot of interest in those as well?
Sure. I think so. We have one question on card sorting from Angela.
Okay.
The question is, do you find educators using card sorting technology for web-based synchronous class meetings?
Web-based synchronous class meetings. I haven't seen it so much in that sense, but perhaps I don't see why it wouldn't be used. I think I need to know a little bit more of the use case or concept of how you'd want to use card sorting in that example, but definitely we see it in academic research quite often through a number of different applications. But no, I mean, I would love to help you out on that. If you want to, shoot me an email, I can answer that question more in-depthly off the webinar and try to get at the root of what you're asking there.
All right, so there's another question. Is there a card sorting template on QuestionPro available? Yes, certainly. We do have, certain set of question templates available for card sorting. You can just test this out.
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely.
All right. Okay, no more questions on card sorting. I think so we can go ahead.
All right, perfect. So let's get into video discussions. This is leveraging our communities platform, but video discussions is obviously, it's a way that you can do online focus groups, IDI sessions, and really have the video discussion. So I think there was a question earlier, a comment that, these people have moved a lot of their in-person interviews to online, more open-ended survey questions. I believe that was it. Where instead of that, you could use online video discussions. And obviously we know the impact that the COVID situation has had on people meeting up, of the online focus group world, and also, just individual meetings and so forth, as essentially, it's slowly starting to come back. But I would say that the video discussions online and having that as a method to use is definitely going to be something that is going to continue in the future. But obviously right now it's super prevalent. It's a much needed feature, and that's why we have it. So this is a feature that has been requested for a while. The pandemic helped us, kind of prioritize this and push it out. So really what it is, you can conduct video discussions online using our technology. And there's a few key differences between our technology and using a like a meeting platform like Zoom, WebEx, and so forth. But essentially, it allows for some additional features and functionality that are particular to researchers that, Zoom, Teams, or whatever you're using, they just don't have that functionality. So how do you host it? You can invite people to participate in the discussion. They get sent an email. Obviously, this is planned, scheduled in advance. And then you essentially can replicate the model that you were using for offline focus groups, and then use that same model. So there can still be, if you've never done an online focus group before, and you've yet done traditional focus groups, you can still have your moderator guide. You can still have the back room. In fact, in some ways, I think this makes it a little bit more efficient because you obviously don't have to travel. You can do this online, but even getting some of the different comments from different stakeholders in the project are a little bit easier with this because everything is chat-based and so forth. And then it's easier, I would say, to get your insights more quickly because of some of the natural language processing that we offer as well. So what are some of the features that I think are unique that a traditional platform doesn't have is that you can seamlessly invite participants to participate. They don't have to be, in a traditional focus group. Let's say you have to do focus groups in different cities because you want to get some varying opinions. Well, you don't have to do that now. You don't have to travel there. You can get opinions from everywhere. It's really reduced that geological barrier. There's a moderator view with controls, so you can still mute members, ask people to turn on their video, message them, and so forth. And then we have live transcription. So let's say we're on a focus group right now and I'm talking. My words are going to be live transcribed automatically in real time so that you can highlight those. Stakeholders can also highlight those if that's something that they want to use either to follow up on and kind of drill down more into, or just use for analysis. Maybe Harsha made a good point and I want to highlight that. Then that comment will automatically show up later in the analysis. So that's the real-time flagging and auto categorization. So using some of these natural language processing things that we've developed really helps out, makes your research more efficient and gets those insights done quicker for things that you would need anyway, like transcriptions and so forth, the backroom chat functionality, as I mentioned, and then really obviously incentivizing. It's a lot easier than using cash or some other methods that you would typically use. The incentive management module within our platform is second to none, and it makes everything seamless from invite to the discussion, and then obviously incentivizing your respondents in that regard as well. All right, so that's video discussion. I would encourage you to use it. If you want to use this, let me know and we can get you set up there. I'm happy to help out on that front. LiveCast is a feature we're going to be releasing in beta that also uses video. So I think there's obviously between the video discussion and LiveCast, video is the key component there. But this is going to be a brand new question type that we're going to be releasing to help collect this feedback in real time. And really you can use this for mobile diaries, but once the videos are submitted, we use machine learning and natural language processing to identify those underlying emotions and really the video and generate those comprehensive reports automatically, much as we do in the video discussions as well. So why do people use LiveCast? Why is it required, or why did we decide to do it? Well, really, we wanted to allow people the option to do video easily and it's more conversational than the other mediums. So let's say you would normally ask an open-ended question. Maybe you can ask people to give you a video response and you can capture more of the context, or you're doing a particular ethnography study and you want to use mobile diaries in that research. You can use LiveCast to get the video component of that. And it will really help you in analyzing and collecting those videos. It's kind of tedious to have people record and even more complicated to analyze. So this really involves minimal work to get the insights that you need, and obviously to get those themes and sentiment around those different topics and things that people are mentioning. So this technology, it's an automated process on our end using that machine learning and natural language processing to uncover the sentiment of different themes. all in one go. So from the respondent standpoint, they would be able to, much like this young lady is doing, they can record the video of themselves giving feedback. And then once they collect it, this is what it looks like as they're submitting it. So you can see with the circle, obviously it lets you know how much time you have left, similar to if you posted stories on Instagram or even LinkedIn now. LinkedIn has stories, which I thought was interesting. But using those methods that people are used to on social media, but they're not having to relearn something new in order to give that easy feedback. And then once they submitted it, this is really where the magic happens in terms of analyzing the video data. So you can see here that it puts the sentiment into it takes the sentiment from the comments and puts it into those different categories. So you can see quality, performance, score, and then of the green is performance was 21%. So this was a positive sentiment around performance. But then, activity had 13% and it was a negative sentiment around activity. So you can easily see the themes, how respondents are discussing each theme and the percentage breakdown, and then the video responses. One more thing that you can do is on an individual video, you can, because we have the real-time transcription, you can see the sentiment based on particular sections within the response. And then we put an overall sentiment on the video as well. So you can see that here, and then the different tags, and you'll be able to jump to the different annotations and see where they were talking about in terms of some of those different categorizations. So that's really around the analyzing the video, making it easier to, once you collect these responses, to then be able to get the insights that you're looking for more easily than having to watch each video and notate down what you need. Let us do the heavy lifting there and really help you out. So those are the things that we can do through this new LiveCast. Again, the video discussion is fresh off the shelf, and LiveCast will be releasing in the next few weeks here. So these are two features that we are definitely excited about. So I'd love to see if there's any questions. We have about 7 minutes left. So happy to answer any questions on those two features or any other questions that maybe came up as we were going through the webinar, but weren't asked earlier.
Sure. All right. So we have one question on video discussions from Jenny. And is there a limit of number of participants that can join the video discussions?
There's not a limit, but there should be a limit in your mind in terms of, like a traditional focus group, if you have too many people, it's going to be hard to manage and get everybody in that discussion. So I would still say 10 to 12 is a good rule of thumb for the live discussion. Anything else, it just becomes a little bit unruly. You can certainly do it, but I wouldn't recommend it.
All right. So just a follow-up question to that is natural language processing available in other languages, or is it just in English?
Yeah, right now we just have English, but we're going to be working on Spanish, German, and a few of the other languages as well. So right now it's just in English.
Okay, so another question on LiveCast: how does the text get categorized into themes? Do the researchers have to suggest them?
No, it's done automatically. So the machine learning takes the actual transcript or takes the words and then creates those categories from it. So you don't need to suggest those categories. Certainly after the fact, you can go and auto-categorize things if maybe they didn't get the theme quite right, or you want to change it based on certain language that you use. But essentially our technology puts the theme to the different text.
Perfect. So Samir has a question. Can we get a word cloud from the video data analysis? Yes, we support word clouds as well. So the data is translated to text, and then we kind of put a beautiful word cloud for you to analyze. All right.
Exactly.
So we have Dr. Ron Bremen saying that he would like to see a demo, a short demo of LiveCast. We'll definitely set up a meeting with you separately to give you a quick walkthrough for that. All right, then let's see. A couple of other languages on, different, a couple of questions on languages. When would Spanish be available? Yeah, it's work in progress. So, we'll send out an update to you as soon as we have it. Then we have a question from Robert. Is it available on the non-profit version? Robert, I'll connect with you, offline, and we can take it from there for the non-profit version here. Then we have a question from Paul. Is there a capability to bring a video from outside into this tool for sentiment analysis, or or does the video have to come through a survey input?
Yeah, right now it needs to come through survey input. So importing an external video isn't possible at this point.
All right, so I think so we have covered most of them. Let's see.
Yeah, I would say if there's any questions after this, Harshad, feel free, to reach out to us and, definitely ask us any questions. Here's my contact information. Feel free to email me or message me on LinkedIn. I check both of those frequently. So I'd love to get in touch if you have additional questions or you want to try out a feature, or definitely let Harshad or myself know and we can get you set up.
Sounds good. All right. So we'll be sending out a recap with the recording and a couple of resources with the deck as well to all the attendees over here. So you'll have our contact information just in case if you have any follow-up questions. Feel free to reply to that email and we'll get in touch with you. And yeah, we'll be hosting our next webinar next month as well, and we look forward to seeing you there. I hope this session was really engaging and helpful for you guys. And yeah, thank you so much again.
Yeah, no, thank you everybody. I appreciate your time. Also, my marketing person would probably be really mad at me if I didn't plug X Day. So X Day is our user conference on the 27th. There's links to sign up on our website. And I'm sure if you've logged into the tool, you've seen some notifications as well. So sign up. We're going to be unveiling some new products and different things that we are pushing in the marketplace. We also have speakers from Oracle, Verizon also joining. So it's going to be a fun day. There's more information on our website. So feel free to sign up for that. I would encourage you to do that as well. But no, thank you all for your time today. It's much appreciated.
All right, great. And just, we have a lot of research enthusiasts here, just in case if you want to kind of, get some more information about research, you can also join Dan every Friday on YouTube, on YouTube Live as well. So feel free to join us on our live channel. You can just go to QuestionPro on YouTube and join Dan every Friday at the same time, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Yep, 11 Central. Yep. 11
Central. All right, perfect. So feel free to join us on YouTube as well. We can have a lot of your other questions answered generally on research as well on the channel. And yeah, thank you so much for tuning in.
Yeah, thank you so much. Appreciate your time, everybody.
Thanks, guys. Thank you. Bye-bye.